We review all the best sports clips from around the world. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of any of the other channels? And that's because over here, we actually care about what you have to say. They talk about how they don't care all the time. They talk down to us in the comments they say we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and it's turning into something truly, truly special. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, talking about none other than the 49ers against all odds versus the Chiefs. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to discuss with this one. I haven't seen this clip just yet. So I don't know if they're going to go into, because I know Purdy was recently asked whether or not he's a game manager, or what he thought about the game manager label. So I'm just curious as to see what this looks like. So let's just jump right into it and go from there.
It's the show that is on the first day of Never a Doubt Week.
Yeah, Never a Doubt Week.
Never, did you hear about Never a Doubt Week?
Yeah, I mean,
This
Nick
is,
told me before this show.
and by the way,
too.
you know why it's Never a Doubt Week?
Well, yeah, you have a tattoo. that
No,
says
but
Never a
also
Doubt
because
during the Super Bowl.
you, despite some moments, are coming around.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of the week, Brew's gonna come around as well.
When
I think it's on the
I've
board.
been digging all weekend. I was in the field.
Yeah, by Friday, we're gonna be triplets of Never a Doubt.
It's gonna be a
Okay.
Yeah, have some.
Yeah. What's the question?
If he beats this vaunted Chiefs defense, would you give him your respect?
I already respect him.
Well, not really.
I already respect him. People don't want me to give Brock Purdy earned respect, which I have. They want me to give Brock Purdy unearned praise, which I have thus far refused to, and I will continue to refuse to as long as it is unearned. If and when it becomes earned, I'll give it to him. Going into the year, I think we all, maybe I'm wrong, but I think we all agreed that he was outside of the top 20 quarterbacks in football. Maybe you had him right on the fringe, but going into the year, it's not like...
I'll say this to you.
Yeah.
I thought when I picked the Eagles to win the NFC, I definitely thought hard about San Francisco, and then I was like, I don't know if Purdy can get him.
Right, and
Yeah,
so
it just sounds too
it
crazy.
is, if people go back and watch some of our shows from last year, it's very interesting now seeing how we discuss Purdy, because it was not as if last year in his short time in the playoff run that we had a big discrepancy. Right. We all thought that the 49ers quarterbacking could hold them back, and I thought they could make the Super Bowl over Philly despite it, because I had believed in them throughout the year. I don't know what people want. He is better than I thought he was. He's better than I think everyone thought he was. Absolutely. I now think he is, after not thinking he was one of the 25 best quarterbacks in football. When I put pencil to paper the other day, I came out with him at 14th of the active quarterbacks today. That is above average. Now, if people want me to say things like, look at the records, look at the numbers, Brock Purdy's better than Justin Herbert, I won't do it. Much less better than the quarterbacks who we know are great rather than Herbert, which is...
So I think that's actually a great point. Using like a Justin Herbert is a good example, because what I'm noticing with some of these conversations specifically about Brock Purdy is a lot of people are saying, no one's saying this about Brock Purdy. No one's saying that he's better than Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, which they are. They just are, which is why these conversations are happening publicly and stuff like that. But I think Justin Herbert is a perfect example, or even like a Josh Allen. A lot of 49ers fans are claiming that Brock Purdy is better than those players. They'll concede, okay, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and maybe even Joe Burrow, but they're saying that he's better than Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and I'm trying to think of any other more players, not more recent, like CJ Stroud is brand new to the league, so I think that's a little bit harder of a reference point. But so, and I think that's actually a great discussion to have, and a lot of people will say, well, look what those players did. Brock Purdy has gone to back-to-back NFC Championship games and went to a Super Bowl. And look what Justin Herbert and Josh Allen have done. None of those things, they haven't even sniffed that level of success. and look at their stats and stuff like that. And again, this is where we have to look at the nuance of something, okay? You can't judge a player just based off of his wins and losses and even his stats for that matter. I'm a huge proponent of this. It's just, we can't just look at numbers and say 10 is greater than 7, therefore this guy is better than that guy. It's just not the way it works. You have to look at something from the complete picture. Josh Allen has had multiple OCs and has a defensive head coach. We know in the modern era of the NFL that is not good. Having multiple OCs alone is very trouble, especially, and guys, you have to understand that when your head coach is defense, your OC is like the entire offense. He is the voice, he is the science, the math, he's everything behind it. It's his philosophy. Like, he may as well be the head coach, so to speak, but just of the offense, hence offensive coordinator. Which is a little different when, say, Andy Reid's your head coach, or Shanahan or McVay. They have an OC who can probably also does give some of their own philosophy, but it's still very much Shanahan. It's very much Reid. Like, it's still very much them pulling, the strings. So when they lose an OC, it's a different experience entirely. It just is. It's just different. It's not as big or important as when you have a defensive head coach and you lose your OC. So Josh Allen has been dealt a bad hand with regards to that. And he also has not had these elite weapons that are either healthy, ready to go. It's just been a mess, okay? And that's not Josh Allen's fault. Same thing with Justin Herbert, okay? He's had a questionable defensive head coach who people thought was going to be this hot new young hotshot, and he ended up being, just not that at all. Just not that at all. Had a weird attitude about himself, a cockiness that was undeserved. And if you just take one look at Justin Herbert, and it's obvious how amazing he is and how brilliant and how great he is. And you look at Brock Purdy, and now you have to understand, you have to judge Brock Purdy on a curved scale here, where he has these amazing weapons around him. He has an amazing head coach around him, Kyle Shanahan. He has these things that we know are going to make everyone better. And again, I say this again and again and again. That is also a huge contributing factor as to what made Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes. So if I'm saying about Brock Purdy, if I'm saying it about Patrick Mahomes, then I'm allowed to say it about Brock Purdy too. Because again, Patrick Mahomes would not be Patrick Mahomes if he was drafted by the Carolina Panthers, if he was drafted by the Chicago Bears, okay? He would not be Patrick Mahomes. He would still be great and would still be very successful, but he would probably be similar to a Josh Allen at the Bills, honestly. He wouldn't have won all these Super Bowls. I mean, I could all but guarantee it, okay? So this is where you have to look at Brock Purdy, where you have to say, okay, yes, he's young. Yes, he's up and coming. Yes, he's learning and growing. But look at the gifts he's gotten. Look at the team he has around him. Look at the coach he has around him. He needs to really wow us. He needs to ball out. And you know what? For us to really give Brock Purdy the respect and the admiration that a lot of Brock Purdy fans want us to give him, he has to ball out in the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean that he has to play a perfect Super Bowl, but he has to ball out. He cannot look like a weaker point. The reality is, he did some amazing things in the last 2 playoff games, and a big part of why they won was because of him. Undeniably, he showed some really special things, especially in the Detroit Lions game. But he also showed some really bad moments that could have gone terribly wrong in both games, really. That could have ended their season because of that. He made some really, really, really bad throws. And if we want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say the Packers game was the rain and it just sucks because he's a smaller person, has smaller hands, whatever, that's just his Achilles heel, his kryptonite, that's fine. I'll throw that away. But the weather was perfect in Detroit, and he was not balling out. He did not play a great game start to finish. And that wasn't against this elite, amazing defense. So when you have Shanahan and you have these weapons, you need to ball out. And this is where I'll also give Brock Purdy the benefit of the doubt, because I don't know if Shanahan necessarily, it's hard to know exactly. But there was parts that I don't think Shanahan put Brock Purdy in a position to succeed. And again, we see this with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is put consistently in a position to succeed by Andy Reid, consistently. And we see this by the minimization of all these errors and mistakes and turnovers and all of this. Andy Reid knows how to maximize the limitations of his team, and it's great. And Patrick Mahomes goes along with it, and Patrick Mahomes is, also brings that level of greatness as well. And the perfect example of this, of the lack of this, was Brock Purdy throwing the ball downfield to Ayuk. Now, a lot of people said, okay, I say that catch was luck. And even Ayuk said it was luck too. And I'm not going to keep going back and forth. And then other people have said, well, that was pass interference, and it was not. They picked up the flag. There was no pass interference, okay? I'm not even going to keep entertaining that. All that aside, that could have gone terrible. They forced the ball downfield like that. And a lot of people say, well, listen, he's a good quarterback. He can make that throw, throwing up a 50-50 ball against a wide receiver. That's what you got to do. At that point in the game, no. Because if that ball is not caught, the 49ers lose that game. If that ball ends up being intercepted, the 49ers definitely lose that game. I mean, everything had to go right perfectly for that. And it wasn't executed perfectly. It literally should have been intercepted. It was just that it was such a bad throw, that it was so overthrown that it hit the defensive player in the face, in the head. So again, and that is not the right time for that play. I understand they needed a big play, okay? There's a difference between getting a big play and throwing a 50-50 ball for a big play. A 50-50 ball is just that. It's 50-50. And that ball, the way how that was thrown, it was not 50-50. It was 80-20. But it just so happened. And again, Ayuk was that was luck. God was with us. A ladybug landed on my foot pre-game. Okay, so he knows that it was just luck. And again, all teams that win the Super Bowl, luck is involved for all of them. I mean, I don't know if there's ever really been a season start to finish where a team wins a Super Bowl and didn't have plenty of lucky moments where the ball had to bounce in their way. So that's not to necessarily take anything away from the 49ers or to emphasize that too much. It's just that, to me, when you look at that game plan and you look at that play call, if they're not asking Patrick Mahomes to do those things, and again, this is the perfect example. If they're not looking to Patrick Mahomes to do that, why are we asking Brock Purdy to do that? If Patrick Mahomes in year 7 or whatever he is in, why are we asking Brock Purdy to do that in year 2? Why would Shanahan even dial up that play? And again, I don't know. Maybe Shanahan tells Brock Purdy, listen, you only throw that ball downfield to Ayuk if it's good, no 50-50 balls. Maybe he straight up said that, no 50-50 balls. If you're going to make that throw, it's got to be there. And maybe Brock Purdy still made that throw. I don't know, right? They're always talking in the headset and all that, so I have no idea. Maybe after that play, Shanahan was like, bro, you got lucky there. Do not make that throw for the rest of the game. We can't have that. We have to be more careful. Yes, it worked out for us, but we have to be more careful. We don't know. I imagine Shanahan's a pretty smart guy, and Shanahan's not oblivious to the fact that he knows that play could have gone the wrong way. And the game could have gotten out of hand very quickly with that. So, and this is what Andy Reid doesn't do to Patrick Mahomes, or Patrick Mahomes also is smart enough to not do those things. So, again, ask yourself, why would... I blame Shanahan for that. Because it's, why would you ask Brock Purdy to do things that you don't even ask Patrick Mahomes to do?
We think he's very, very good, could be great. Mm-hmm. I just won't. And so I don't know what people want me to do here.
If they win this game, would you move? You think you'd move him up from 14th?
I think I have to see how games are played, because I think if we again go to an alternate universe when 5 years ago we weren't together on the show, but people were debating Jimmy Garoppolo. And going into that NFC title game, people were like, well, if they go to the Super Bowl, will you admit Jimmy Garoppolo's good? And then they win 37-20 and Garoppolo throws 8 passes. Right. That didn't prove anything. Here is what, to me, Brew, a win this weekend would do. Because I don't think it will definitively say he's a force multiplier. I don't think it will definitively say he's not a system quarterback. I think it will definitively say he's going to be the Niners quarterback moving forward. And I think that more than just next year, long term. If he wins the Super Bowl with them,
he'll eventually get paid.
Exactly right. And so that's what I'm comfortable saying.
I do think, Nick, and you're right. Let's see how it plays out. We know he's going to throw the ball a healthy number of times. If he plays well and they win, I do think you'll give him some love, because As you said, only Tom Brady and Joe Burrow have ever beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. So if Brock Purdy joins that group, that's big right there. Secondly, he will have done something that Tua couldn't do, Josh Allen couldn't do, and Lamar Jackson couldn't do. And Lamar and Tua actually looked bad against this Chiefs defense. And Allen, we disagree, but you thought he didn't look good. I thought he looked good. But bottom line is he couldn't beat him and couldn't come through at the end of the game. And he will become Brock.
I take such issues with that because it's not that those players couldn't, it's that their teams couldn't. Lamar Jackson played terrible. That's kind of its own little story, but it's not that they couldn't beat Patrick Mahomes. They're not playing one-on-one basketball here, so.
Purdy, only the third quarterback ever to win the Super Bowl in his first full season as a starter. The other two, Kurt Warner and Tom Brady. Now, people may say, well, you're always throwing him in the names along with these Hall of Famers, but he's actually putting himself, not that he's as good as those guys right now, but he's putting himself in those types of circles. And here's what I like about him, Nick. If I looked up like all the quarterbacks who won Super Bowls, there's about 13 that either aren't Hall of Famers or won't be. If you take out Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford, who I guess kind of have an outside chance, but they were stars. Take them out. The other 11, they differ from Purdy in that they didn't put up great individual numbers. Now, he's only in his second year, but they didn't put them up consistently. None of them ever threw for 30 touchdowns. And I get it was a different game back then. I'm talking about Joe Flacco, Joe Theismann, Brad Johnson, people like that. None of them threw for 30 touchdowns. Purdy did this year. And even though the game is different now and guys tend to throw more, he's only threw it 444 times. He threw it less than Lamar Jackson, and he led the league in touchdown percentage. So percentage of his throws that were TDs. So I think he's a combination of a guy that puts up numbers, and if he wins this game, wins, and that's what stars are made of.
Playoff, Tua, Allen, Lamar, 3 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Do you think that him putting up numbers against the Chiefs defense will give you a little bit of like, you know what? I've been saying this.
So, again, these numbers are misleading. Tua, we know that it was brutally freezing cold. And again, this has nothing to do about the Chiefs defense now. So just get over that. But we know that game was brutally freezing. Like, Patrick Mahomes wasn't throwing bombs left and right either. So we know that, okay? Same thing with the Josh Allen game. We could add literally another 100 yards to Josh Allen's numbers if his receivers just caught the ball. He threw 3 amazing dimes, 60-plus yards. We could literally add over 100 yards, which then would have also increased his touchdowns and would have also increased his passer rating. No ifs, ands, or buts. The Lamar Jackson game was just a bizarre, terrible game plan. Terrible game plan. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever really know what the heck that was. So, to me, that's these last 3 games are not a perfect representation. Because also, let's look at the games from throughout the regular season, which also show potentially similar numbers. But again, they weren't going up against teams that were as good as the 49ers. You're talking about teams like the Patriots and stuff, which, okay, great. Congratulations. That's not to say that the Chiefs defense is not good. I think the defense for the Chiefs are great and elite and is carrying the Chiefs this season. You know, I think kind of indisputably for that. But that doesn't mean that the 49ers and Brock Purdy can't succeed against it. So I don't think using those past 3 games or even just highlighting these 3 quarterbacks as a frame of reference, because also Lamar, it was pouring, it was the weather wasn't good. But again, also I stand by that just being a terrible game plan. Tua, it was absolutely bitter, freezing cold. They were throwing a literal rock out there. Couldn't even kick field goals practically. So that's misleading. And again, Allen, who's actually the only person who up there that's actually really proven to be able to handle a big moment in the playoffs. His receivers just dropped the ball. I mean, they literally dropped the ball. If they just caught one of those passes, you would see there would be 200. It would be 2 touchdowns, 280 yards, 260 yards, 270 yards, and a passer rating of, definitely well over 90. So, that to me, that matters.
Chiefs defense is elite the whole year, and Brock Purdy played well.
But so hold on. So again, because I have been accused, and we even have a prop associated with it, of moving the goalposts. And I feel like some of the Purdy supporters have been doing that this postseason. Because those of us that were skeptical of Brock, and despite the overwhelming numbers, what we were told is, what more do you want him to do? And then in this postseason, when he has 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, has not played well in either game for giant stretches of it. In the second game, at least, he was good for a quarter. In the first game, he was good for 1 drive. Folks now say, well, those numbers don't matter, he won. And so there's
a... Did have 2
but I think, and I also think, because we talked about, if he has a great game this weekend, I'm not talking about the Super Bowl, but would you be impressed? You're like, no, I've seen that. You said you'd be more impressed if he plays poorly, they're down, right, and then he rallies, which is what he did twice.
Correct, which is why I then said I was more impressed. But I guess my point is, I at least have been consistent on what I want to see. What I think some people who are trying to manifest a player that they...
You haven't been consistent with what you want to see, and then you just lied there, because when Brock Purdy showed you a comeback, you said, well, that wasn't good enough. I thought that was good enough, but that wasn't good enough to convince me. So you haven't been consistent in that, and so what he just said doesn't really make sense. And I think with Brock Purdy, the reason why the comebacks aren't as impressive, or they don't feel as impressive, is because part of the reason why they were down was because of Purdy, and part of the comeback as well, there was some luck involved, like having the Detroit Lions, one, the Brandon Ayuk catch, which I've already talked about at length. The other thing is just that the Detroit Lions, they fumbled the ball on the handoff. They went for it multiple times on 4th down. They did things that were not good. Missed field goals for like the Packers game. So they didn't feel like these true comebacks that were not Purdy's fault, or that they were able to come back with luck. I think something that would have to really impress you with Purdy is that he plays a great game start to finish. And the reason why they're down is just because of their defense, or just because, something that has nothing to do with Brock Purdy, right? Brock Purdy throws an absolute amazing throw, and, their guy rips off for a 50-yarder touchdown, and he just gets stripped and it's fumbled and it gets run back for a touchdown, right? Nothing to do with Brock Purdy. And despite all that, Brock Purdy just continues to ball out and just, be a gunslinger. I think that's when you would be impressed with Brock Purdy. But so far, his comebacks, he's been a big reason. If you want to say he's not the only reason, that's fine. But he's been a big reason why they were down in the first place. And in order to come back, he needed very key things, like the Green Bay Packers missing a field goal, like the Detroit Lions going for it on 4th down, not getting it, fumbling the ball, having a ball hit them in the face and bounce off and have IU make a circus catch, into the end zone. Like very freak accident things, rather than let's go, here we go. And that's the difference. Seriously, that really is the difference. And I had just watched the end of the Rams versus the Tampa Bay game a couple of seasons ago with Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford, the year that Stafford won the Super Bowl with the Rams. When you saw Tom Brady come back to tie that game, you're like, whoa, brilliance, okay? And then Stafford gets the ball back and makes a couple, like, unbelievable throws to Kupp. And you're just like, wow, that is amazing. That's insane. You haven't seen that with Purdy necessarily. You've seen a couple amazing throws that you said, wow, that is really, really impressive. But it was a different level of impressive. It was impressive within the context of the game. Not so much of, look what Stafford just made. Look what Tom Brady just made happen. It was their level of them being elite in those moments that was impressive. And we haven't fully seen that with Brock Purdy. He's had some stretches of this, but again, so many specific circumstances had to happen for that to even be highlighted in the first place. And you can make the argument, well, listen, you can only do what you're given. And I get that. It's a fair argument, right? But at the same time, Brock Purdy needs to have these wow moments when he's playing great start to finish. And if he needs to make a comeback, It's not because he's now thrown an interception. Because if you throw 2 interceptions and they're run back for touchdowns and now you're down 14-0, but then you come back to win the game, is it really a comeback? You're the reason why they were down in the first place. And I'm not saying that he was all the reason why they were down. That was just what, just an example. But so my point is that he needs to prove, in order for him to truly prove that he's elite and great and can take this next level, he needs to play elite and great for the whole game. He has to stay composed. He has to take care of the ball. And really, in this Super Bowl, he has to be pretty much flawless. I mean, he really does. And we could say, Patrick Mahomes hasn't been flawless in a playoff game. And he hasn't been flawless in a Super Bowl. That's true. But Patrick Mahomes has consistently shown that he can overcome those. And that he doesn't need luck to overcome those things. Or very perfect circumstances to overcome it. Brock Purdy has not had that luxury yet. He has not had the ability to do that yet. So, it'll be interesting to see what he does come time Sunday. And I'm excited for it. I can't wait. I'm rooting for Brock Purdy. I think he can succeed. And I'm really excited to see what Shanahan and this offense has cooked up. But I think Brock Purdy's success is going to be on if Shanahan can put Brock Purdy in a position to succeed. If he can do that, their offense should be better than the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And then it really kind of comes down to whose defense can kind of just limit the bleeding more. Can you stop Patrick Mahomes? Or can you stop Brock Purdy as well as Christian McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle, everyone else, right? When you start naming the players on the 49ers offense, plenty of those other players wouldn't be starting. Pacheco's not starting over McCaffrey, right? Rice is not starting over Deebo Samuel or even Ayuk. You know what I'm saying? So really the only argument is Kittle versus Kelsey. And if you had to pick one right now, not career-wise, just in general, just for this season, you would have to pick Kittle because Kittle's clearly playing better than Kelsey. So they have every single weapon on offense is better than compared to the Chiefs. The big difference is the quarterback and the head coach for that matter. So we will see what happens. But let me know what you all think. How do you think the 49ers will fare against the Chiefs? Do you think Brock Purdy is continuing to get just unfair criticism? I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Please let me know below. And please, if you do comment, save your comments of me saying that I'm a Brock Purdy hater, because I've consistently said that he is a good quarterback and that I really enjoy watching him play, and I am not a hater. So if you disagree with me, find a different way to do it, because it's really getting old hearing you guys tell me that I'm just a Brock Purdy hater, because I'm not. So let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see a part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the visibility and the algorithm, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and see you next time.